Nice little username there in Fisher Firuzia. The third best and 136th best player of all time.
Yeah, let's take some other challenge here. Ocean Storm is a Grandmaster. Let's not exaggerate, guys. We just started. Let's not take Grandmaster. Let's take someone with a random account, with a random name that just seems attractive. D4, Knight f6.
Yeah, stop playing with my rating, guys. That's becoming a bit embarrassing. I mean, what is this stream if not an opportunity for my mods to roast me? Like, there's really no other reason for me to stream apart from that.
Bishop h3. Rook a2 back. Yeah, I'm not going to accept a draw, of course. We're not in the charity business here.
And a queen check comes. Another queen check. Okay, now you are pre-moving. This is very smart, but I can also pre-move a mate in 2. Okay, thank you for the game, and it wasn't rated. I mean, okay, I'm done. So sorry, guys. I'm not going to Banter anymore. This wasn't rated. This was freaking unrated. No, I mean, okay. Most chickenish way to play. I mean. Unrated. I'm amazed. I'm just amazed. Okay, if anyone can replace me in this Banter, sorry. Okay, let's play against Julia Brazil. It's 3+2, but this will be my revenge, so I'll make this game last forever.
Ay. Such a beast. Yeah, okay, this is pointless. Okay. Good game. Whatever we're saying. There. Okay.
Let's briefly see if Frenchman has challenged me. It's hard to find. Probably should go to his account and see. Ooh, H6, H3. Hello, G5. Didn't see it coming, eh? Mate? Who's funny now, eh, Harigiri? Oh, Knight H2, like this. Knight H2. Please don't hit me. Oh, don't hit me. Boom.
You don't accept my challenge.
Okay, I'll accept. I didn't see a challenge.
You're too afraid.
I'm not afraid. I didn't see your challenge. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can you go, please? I'm shy.
I'm
Can you
gonna
please
sit next to you.
No, can you
while
please
you're
go?
playing.
No, please. Can you go somewhere else?
Okay, no Frenchman. Next is me.
Yeah. Okay.
And you challenge.
Okay. No Frenchman. Being tossed around here by my wife.
Hello, Miss Tactics. Hello there. So, Pico, we gotta play before my manager is back in the office. Ooh. That's, I think your manager should understand and challenge me as well.
I've also been told many a Jan, Just fix the shit. Stop asking the audience if they can hear or see you. And also, stop cursing. I believe that type of feedback has been given to me. More than once. Probably like thrice.
And queen takes f3. Oh! What is going on? Oh, this is going to be a fortress. I just don't see any hopes at all. This is very easy. Just rook back and forth.
Taking chess to the next level.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, yeah. Nothing else to say. Wow.
Creating the future of the sport. Introducing the Champions Chess Tour. 10 months, 10 tournaments. The world's best players online and on TV.
And
All right, welcome everybody. This is Sam Shankland, fresh off of a Banter blitz session, and here I have a short session where we're going to go over my best game from my most recent event. So I played the Sevenu Invitational, but that was Blitz. And well, all Blitz games are pretty lousy. So even if you win, there's always tons of mistakes. But the last event I played at a somewhat longer time control was the ILN Invitational, which was a rapid event, I think, a couple months ago. But I managed to win the tournament ahead of some strong players like Gelfand, Ivanchuk, and Dominguez, who was the player I faced in this particular game. So this is me playing black against Linear Dominguez, who's a very strong player. He's mid 2700s. So he's maybe a little stronger than me, although I think in classical I should be back there soon enough. In any case, I was playing black this game. He opened with e4. I responded with c5, and we quickly ended up in the Rouser variation, the Sicilian, which would be here after knight f6, knight c3. The main move by some margin is a6. That's the Najdorf, which is most common, and g6 is played as well sometimes. But I played knight c6, which is a bit less common. I'm sorry, wrong one. I'll say here. I'm sorry, misclicked there. Okay, my bad, guys. So yeah, knight c6, and then the point is here. White goes bishop g5, and there followed e6. Opening analysis. And after queen d2, a6, castle along, bishop d7. This position has sort of become all the rage nowadays because the new AI engines like Lila 0 are suggesting that black's position has become playable, while some of the older engines like Stockfish don't like it very much. So the game continued with f3, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and then bishop e7. And so these positions are somewhat hard to evaluate, but one of black's big points is that basically if white ever wants to play g4, like if white were to play g4 here, he generally is pretty happy to respond with h5, pointing out that the bishop on g5 is somewhat misplaced, and as a result can find itself on a less than optimal square. And here black is able to open the h file and get some counterplay. For example, in the event of gh5, black can play knight h5 without having to worry about losing the d6 pawn, since if white were to take everything and take on d6 in the end, there's a problem coming with knight g3. So going back, instead of this, Dominguez played the move bishop e3, which I think is pretty cooperative because it's a little inflexible. Now his point, though, is he is ready to play g4 followed by g5, which would let him gain space on the king side. And I was very happy with finding the move h5 in response, which stops that from happening. So following king b1, I went b5, there came h4, queen c7, queen d2. This is all pretty typical stuff. b4, knight e2, a5. And here Dominguez showed a pretty good understanding of the position with the move bishop g5. And I believe that his point is here is he's trying to play prophylaxis against black castling, with the point that if black were to castle here, white is in time to play e5. And as a result here, I can immediately resign because I'm losing a piece. If d e5, there will follow bishop takes f6, and the bishop on d7 is going to be lost. So this move bishop g5 is sort of prophylaxis against me castling, and it also kind of highlights the weakness that I've made by advancing my pawn to h5 to stop g4. I have loosened my control over the g4 square. And here, black would very much like to get himself castled so that he could get his rook on h8 into the game. And it's actually not that easy to find the best way for black, but I was very happy with the ultimate decision I took, which was to play a4. And so this involves a pawn sacrifice because, of course, white could take the b4 pawn. But my point was that if white takes it, and now I go rook b8, I'm getting a huge amount of counterplay on the c file. So I considered here two options for white. If he plays queen d2, my point was I can now castle safely, I believe, because the open v file really causes some trouble. If white tries to play the same way with e5, my big idea was that I would be able to take this pawn and following bishop f6, queen d7. Normally, I would have to resign here because I'm down a piece, but because the b file is open, I have this lovely move queen b6, which threatens the pawn on b2, which forces white to spend a move to defend it, and that's a move that he does not spend moving his queen out of the way. So if he were to play a move like b3, and I go rook f d8, the queen will be lost. if we go back and compare this to what would happen if I try castling without playing b4 first, there's nothing of the sort going on, because here I have to move my queen somewhere. If I play rook d8 right away, white is able to stop the mate with knight c1. So I have to move my queen, but because I don't win a tempo while doing it, white should be fine any number of ways here. He gets the queen out of the way. The easiest is probably knight c1, getting the knight to a nice safe square and pointing out that in the event of rook d8, white is ready with queen b5. And the tactics are working in his favor, because in the event of queen takes b5 and white takes back, the rook on g1 ends up protected. So this whole trick just doesn't work for black until he has lost his b4 pawn. But after queen takes b4, rook b8, if he were, of course, in this position, white does not have to play e5. But if he doesn't, I'm ready for rook fc8 next. And I think black is getting a lot of activity with these rooks on the open file against white's king. And I think black has fine compensation for the missing pawn. So Dominguez, instead, after a4, he chose the move knight f4, which was also very sensible, paving way for his bishop on f1 to develop. Now, again, this is further prophylaxis against castling. If I were to castle here, now e5 doesn't work as well, because in this position, this knight is going to hang here, and so taking on d7 isn't so convincing. But he can simply go knight takes h5, which wins a very clean pawn. So once more, I can't castle so easily, and I have to make a waiting move. What I came up with was rook c8. Now, I wish I could say that this was some brilliant ploy to provoke white's bishop to the a6 square, and then once it's there, come back to b8. But I would be lying to you. It was just a straight blunder. I didn't even see bishop a6. So if I had seen it, maybe I would have played rook b8 in the first place, which seems like a nice square for the rook, preparing to play b3 next and looking to pressure white that way. But in either case, after rook c8, bishop a6, here Dominguez played, he played bishop a6. And after rook b8, he decided that the bishop on a6 was misplaced and ducked it back to d3, which makes some sense. There's lines where the bishop can get attacked, and it's not great. And here after bishop d3, this was, I think, the really critical moment of the game where I was very happy with the move and the plan I found. So in general, this is going to be a lecture style thing just because the way the windows work is tough. But I'm going to give everybody one chance here in the chat to interact and see if they would like to come up with a move for black in this position that gives him good prospects. So what have we got here? Anybody in the chat? Looks like nobody's interacting here. A lot of people are saying b3, but I don't think b3 helps very much, because white will play c takes b3 and then a3, keeping his king nice and safe, and get ready for rook c1 next, when I think that he has a pretty good position. I had another idea in mind. I'll give everyone just a moment. Dr. Bogey says a3, but I don't love a3 either, because after white plays b3 in response, then the bishop will get the c4 square, which shuts down the c file and puts a lot of pressure on black's position. So Kasparov fan is getting closer. He's suggesting e5. So e5 is the right idea, but the wrong timing. The problem is following e5, white's going to go bishop f6, and then knight d5. And I think the problem with black's position is that, let's say he goes queen c5. Here, white needs to bolster the knight on d5, and he's just in time to do it, because he can play b3, and he's ready to meet bishop e6 with bishop c4. He can always take back with the c-pawn here, and with this fantastic knight on d5 and the good control over the white squares, I think white should be better. But because of that, it sort of shows what black's idea is. I decided to play queen c5 first, and my plan with this move was that I could play e5 next, and indeed that's what happened. First of all, it's actually sort of hard to see a useful move for white. Dominguez eventually chose rook h1, but now and only now I play e5. And my point was that following something like this, here I believe the computer said that I could get away with taking this pawn, but I don't want it. My plan in the game was to play bishop e6 and point out that I'm counterattacking this knight before white can play something like b3 followed by bishop c4. And as a result, the knight on d5 is not very secure. If white were to take on f6, I think this position is fantastic for black. His king will be completely safe on e7. He has good play all over the board. He can play on the king side with rook g8 or on the queen side with a3, queen d4. And it's a very dangerous position for white. I think black has better central control, a safer king, a better bishop, and better structure. It all seems very good. So my whole point here, though, was that because I have put the queen on c5 already, I don't have to waste a move with the queen, which means white will not have time to play b3, bishop c4. Instead of this, Dominguez tried knight d5, but this leaves a structure that black is very happy with. Following knight takes d5, e d5, white is left with a lot of weaknesses here. And I found the move a3, and after bishop e7, king e7, probably white should play b3, but the position still strikes me as very dangerous. Instead, Dominguez made a very understandable decision to play f4, trying to take advantage of my king in the center. But here I found a very nice tactical sequence that forced a fantastic endgame for black. I went with queen d4. The threat of mate on the b2 square forces white to play queen c1. And then I went bishop g4, a very powerful move, attacking this rook on d1, who doesn't really have a great place to go, because if it were to go to d2, now the f4 pawn will fall. And with it, white's entire game plan will fall, because my e5 pawn will be bolstered and the center will be secure. If white takes on e5 after bishop d1, I don't believe he has anything here, because black is ready to trade queens next with queen b2. So Dominguez played bishop e2, but now after a takes b2, he cannot avoid an exchange of queens, and he'll be left with a miserable endgame with a bunch of weak pawns. Following queen d2, take. I took on e2, rook takes e2, f6. The position is very, very difficult for white already. Following king takes b2, rook hc8. Black has very good play against all of the weaknesses. His king is very well centralized. If white ever plays f takes e5, there will follow d takes e5. And the rest of the game was not played wildly well because the clocks were getting low, but I think I managed to get through nicely. So there followed rook e4, rook c3. I was potentially looking for the rook to come to g3 here. And according to the machine, white was only a little bit worse now if he played g4, which is a very difficult move for a human to find. Dominguez tried taking on e5, but here all I have to do is stick my king on d6, duck the rook back to c5, take his pawn, and he's in bad shape. So white tried rook takes b4 just to try to complicate the game a bit, but I had a very nice tactical resource here. What should black play? Anybody? Anyone have a move for black here? It's a very nice move. Yeah, everyone's got this now. Good stuff. Rook takes c2 check, desperadoing this rook, and then following rook takes c2, rook takes b4 check, king a3, and rook takes h4. Black is up a pawn and should be winning. There were still a little bit of complications left, though. Dominguez tried rook king b3, hoping to just get this a pawn moving, but it doesn't save him because rook d4 comes and takes this one, and black should be in good shape. Still, there was a little mess at the end of the game that I probably could have done better to avoid. Here, after takes a4, it went like e4, king c2, and I played king e5 now, aiming to activate my king via f4. This a-pawn is pretty well under control. White played g3, and here I definitely didn't... I played h4, which does win, but I think it complicates the game a bit more than necessary. I probably could have done myself a favor by playing something like king d4 instead. After h4, now my thought here was my rook stops both of these pawns pretty nicely and cuts off white's king from joining the fight, and black is ready to shove his e-pawn down the board. But it's not that easy because Dominguez found the best move in rook g1, pointing out that if e3 he can check me, and it's a little annoying to deal with. I think even this is probably still winning, but I preferred playing f5 first so that if he checks me, my king can come forward instead of back. But at least here white gets h5 in. And after e3, h6, I think the easiest way to bring this game to its conclusion was to give a check. And then after king c3, I can play rook d7. And my point is, by giving this check, when he plays something like rook g7, e2 takes, because I have provoked the king up to this c3 square, e1 queen was going to come with check, which means I'm going to win this pawn before it reaches h7 and becomes annoying. So this would have been the cleanest way. Of course, we were very low on time at this point. But I instead played e2. And after h7 here, rook d8, I think the computer says with some very strange sequence, white will save the game with rook g8 here, but I don't. It's very hard for a human to find. We got something similar in the game following rook h1, king g3. You have to be careful. If I were to play king e3 here, there would be h8 queen, which would ruin my day because following capture and capture, there will be rook e8 at the end, and that's bad news for me. But after king g3, I'm ready for f4, f3 coming. Rook g1 check, king f2. And Dominguez tried rook g8 here, which, I mean, we were both playing on seconds, so it's unsurprising there was a lot of mistakes. This was the best move. And here black would be winning with rook d2 check. The point being that after king takes d2, e1 queen check, this king will not escape in time. Largely because this rook doesn't reach the d8 square, it means that black's queen will have access to more squares. After this check, let's say white goes king c3. If his rook were on the d8 square here, it wouldn't be that easy to waltz my queen back, but here it's quite straightforward. After check, rather than king d2, meaning no more checks, here I can come check this way and take the pawn. This would have been the best way. Instead, I played e1 queen directly, and again, it's impossible to play a position this sharp with no time. But after here, check, king c3. Here we see that if I were to play queen c6, check, king d2, I actually even lose. Or no, here there's queen h6. What am I talking about? Maybe king d3, something like this. And here, it's not so easy for me to go pick up this pawn because I don't have this square. But after king c3, I played queen e5 check. And the computer claims that after king b3 and a whole bunch of very difficult only moves for white, he is able to only allow a perpetual check. But Dominguez played king c2, and then after queen c7 check, it's all over. Obviously, this game was a bit flawed at the end. There were some mistakes made. That's natural in a rapid game when the clocks get low. But I thought that I played the early middle game very well. Specifically, the moments I was most happy with were finding the plan to play queen c5 before playing e5, and then getting this e5 idea through I thought was very clever. Additionally, I was very happy going back to this moment where I came up with the plan to play queen d4 and then bishop g4. This bishop g4 move really put the nail in the coffin, because without that, this game is totally unclear. White is ready for rook e4. He is ready for f takes e5, queen g5. He's ready for bishop f5. These moves will make counterplay, and bishop g4 is the only way to really keep black on top, and it does a very good job of that. So yeah, this was my best game from the most recent tournament series event I played, the ILN Invitational. I was delighted to be invited and very happy to have won the tournament. This was my favorite game from it, where I won with the black pieces against a pretty strong player. So that'll do it for this lesson. Thanks everybody for watching, and good job everybody. So I will catch you all next time.